Hey everyone, my name is TheiPadCat and I'm here today with my Firefly attire, and today I thought we'd discuss why The Last of Us cannot be an open world. So, to start this entire discussion, we have to make a distinction first. There is a distinction between The Last of Us and a game in The Last of Us's universe. That is a very clear distinction. As Neil Druckmann has repeatedly told us, The Last of Us is Joel and Ellie. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a game within The Last of Us universe can be or could be open world. But what I'm talking about here today is why The Last of Us with Joel and Ellie and why those games won't work as open world games. So to start, I have identified two major problems which can be, of course, divided into a lot of smaller minor problems. And these two problems with an open world The Last of Us game, the first one is that the entire game of The Last of Us is predicated on this journey, both an emotional and relationship journey and a journey literally throughout the United States. And at its core, that journey is an adventure. The Last of Us is pretty much an adventure game, and that would never work in an open world setting. If you compare adventure games like The Last of Us to, for example, an open world game like GTA 5, you have two different types of fun. You have the fun of going on an adventure, of being involved in a grand story scheme, like taking Ellie to the Fireflies. But in GTA, the entire core of the fun is what you do in the world, right? The exploration, the stealing the cars, driving around in different sorts of vehicles, causing chaos, basically. And that's not what you do in The Last of Us. The Last of Us, you go on this adventure from point A to B. That's not at all how it works in open world games. And that's one of the reasons that The Last of Us cannot work as an open world game. Also, if you would apply the open world scenario, the setting, to The Last of Us, well, as I said, this type of core fun that is going around in the world, doing stuff, causing chaos, exploring, that would very much take away from what is at The Last of Us's core, which is Joel and Ellie's relationship. How would you keep that at the game's heart, at the center of the action, while you run around in a post-apocalyptic Boston open world and pick up collectibles and clear out bandit camps and stuff? I don't see how that would work. The second problem, which is of course related to the first problem, is that what do you do with that open world? As I said, there has to be stuff to do in the open world. Its entire selling point is the world itself. And if The Last of Us only focuses on Joel and Ellie's story, which is what The Last of Us is, as I've already stated, how does the world become fun? How do you make a game around that? You can't really have The Last of Us, or any game for that matter, in an open world setting with only a main story and nothing else. That would just become a waste of space, an entire area of nothing. And there are games that do this. Those games don't do very well. So, firstly, if you would apply an open world to The Last of Us, you'd have to completely change around the entire concept of the game. You'd have to make exploration a focus. You'd have to maybe sort of introduce some sort of leveling system, perhaps. I don't know. You'd have to have lots and lots of activities besides the main story. You'd have to have like side stories that go off, and ultimately that would take away so much from the experience of the ever-progressing relationship between Joel and Ellie if you would just get sidetracked and go clear out the camp of bandits or a nest of clickers and, well, I don't know, but basically bread and butter open world activities. The entire concept of The Last of Us prevents it from ever being applied to an open world setting. Take another game like Just Cause, for example. That would never in 100 years work as a linear game. How would you apply all the fun of blowing military bases up and doing crazy things with your grappling hook if it's just a linear story? That would never work. It would never create that amazing user-created scenarios that that creativity and destructive fun that you have in those games. And that's kind of the same thing, but the other way around with The Last of Us. The entire appeal of The Last of Us is Joel and Ellie's relationship, and that doesn't work in the open world, as I've gone over. So, I mean, I can see the appeal. I would definitely, I mean, a game in The Last of Us's universe, not a The Last of Us game, but a game in The Last of Us's universe, an open world game there, would be very cool. I love post-apocalyptic games. I've played lots of Fallout, which I absolutely love, and that is a post-apocalyptic open world, so I know they work. But that isn't... The appeal of Fallout is a lot different from The Last of Us. Maybe... I actually... There could work with open worlds. It could be like, let's say, Shadow of War, for example. That is a semi-linear game, but still open world. It has zoned open areas, which you go back and forth between. And it's still like, there's still a story progression between those areas in a linear way. So perhaps, if you were to make The Last of Us into an open world game, you could have these zoned areas. So let's say you start in the open world zone of Boston, then you progress to the open world zone of Pittsburgh, and then to Tommy's town, and lastly to the hospital, of course. But that, I mean, that would take away so much from, as well, from the journey aspect. But that, I see how that maybe could work, but I'm not sure it would be as great. So, that's my thought on The Last of Us and open world going together. Obviously, as you can probably hear, this is not a scripted video. I have some notes on my phone, but this is just a test if this type of content works for me. I want to branch out and do other stuff because, well, my very high value production videos, they take so long, and the ideas for those videos also take long to formulate. So I wanted to try stuff like this. So tell me if you like it or not, and perhaps give me some suggestions for other types of this type of discussion, I guess. But until next time, have a great day. Jesus, this is the most embarrassing thing I ever done.